Alright, what's good YouTube, it's Jay here. For today's video, I'm going to keep this intro short. We're going to be talking about what I thought of the Black Ops 6 beta. So, Treyarch has Black Ops 6 on the way. Obviously, they just got through with 2 weekends of betas. To be perfectly honest, I kind of wish they extended the beta a little bit, but unfortunately, that will not be the case. It ended today of this recording, Monday at 10 a.m. PT. We're going to break this down into a few different categories: graphics, performance, server stability, audio spawns, COD HQ, and a few other little subcategories here and there. Overall, I did think this beta was fantastic. I can't wait to go into details about what I did like and what I really wasn't too fond of here and there. So let's just talk about graphics and performance first. This game, and we're going to loop this in there, we're going to loop storage in here as well. This game is not that big. Some people saw the 300 gigabyte file size without realizing that includes Warzone, campaign, multiplayer, all of that stuff. This game is actually, I think, 60 to 80 gigs or something, the actual multiplayer. Just keep that in mind. But if we're talking about performance and graphics, well, okay, there were a couple of issues with that. I had a hard time kind of running this game periodically with massive frame drops here and there, performance issues and so forth. I run on a 4070 and an AMD Ryzen 7 5800X 3D for my CPU and a host of other good components. I play all my Call of Duties on SSDs, if that is information that's useful to you. I do stream on the same computer as well, so just to keep that in mind. But even when I'm not streaming, I still had some issues with this game and its performance. Consistent FPS drops here and there, random stutters, random moments where the game just didn't feel like it wanted to run, overusing my GPU and so forth. I tried to play around with a lot of different settings of the game. I do know for some reason they decided to turn on shader cache, downloading or whatever it's called. I don't remember what the setting is called. It's on by default now for some weird reason. You can only limit it, you can't turn it off anymore, which I think is a little, well, just dumb if we're being completely honest. The fact that the game is constantly going to be downloading textures while you're playing is a little annoying. Of course you can limit it, but that's just a little weird. It's going to mess with your connection to the game. It's probably one of the main causes of all the packet bursting and whatever, and some of the other graphical performances that I had issues with. I don't really know. I just wish that setting wasn't on by default. Visually speaking, this game actually looked really, really good. This is gameplay with my graphics set to a relatively low set of settings. It's a good looking game. If you really care about graphics and stuff, obviously there are going to be people out there who play their games in 4K resolution and all this other stuff. I try to go for a little mix of performance versus quality. That way my game doesn't look too ugly, but it's also still achieving those higher frame rates for the equipment that I'm using with it. I don't know what they could do to technically improve the performance of this game overall, but I do know it was just a really, really hard game to run on my particular rig. I saw a lot of people on social media complaining about the exact same thing as well, so I didn't feel too alienated from my personal opinions on this. And this is after 2 weekends of playing this beta. Now, I will admit, the very first weekend was the worst. For some reason, the second weekend, which was only a couple of days after the first one had ended, wasn't bad at all. I was able to consistently maintain between 130 to 150 frames and a little bit higher when I wasn't streaming or recording a video. Prior to that though, this game was a stuttering nightmare. That very first weekend was rough, so I don't know what changes they made. Maybe it's all related to packet bursting. It couldn't even be related maybe to the actual game's performance. It could just be related to packet bursting. Overall, the performance of this game was kind of weird and really the only area of the game that I did not like at all. With all the stutters, FPS drops, and so forth, it made some of the experiences just absolutely abhorrent here and there, but I was able to kind of overcome it, especially on that second weekend when it seemed like all of the issues that were present in the first weekend just kind of disappeared. Conveniently, they actually updated the servers and stuff by the end of the first week, and then going into the second week, I am going to assume they kept all those server settings and probably improved them a little bit more, so maybe it was all related to packet bursting. So, server stability, I mean, there really isn't too much to say. The servers for this were, well, lackluster to say the least. I got hit with so many packet bursts, and if you haven't been paying attention in this video, packet bursts is where this little orange thing pops up in the left-hand corner, basically showing there's some server instability or latency or problems or whatever. I have good internet, mind you. I have really good internet. And this was consistently happening throughout the entirety of the weekend. Everybody was talking about it on social media, Call of Duty pros, content creators, everybody was talking about packet bursting. It's easily one of the worst things to come out of this modern era of Call of Duty. I don't know why the servers continue to do this. You can even see in some of these clips, some of the shots are super laggy. Packet bursting is popping up on the left-hand side. And it's weird. Half of the stuff happens when I'm like in a gunfight. If somebody's looking at me and I try to pull my trigger, I just lag, and I don't know why. It's such a weird problem that Call of Duty has had for a while. Apparently Warzone has this issue also. I don't really play much Warzone these days. I'm more of a multiplayer guy at my core, so I can't really speak on that, but apparently there are a lot of issues with packet bursting in Warzone. So I don't know. I hope they're able to figure out this server issue system thing that they've got going on. I don't know if it's because they run cheap servers or what, but it really needs to be fixed, man. It is very obnoxious to be in the middle of a gunfight and your entire screen is just lagging for no reason. I get packet bursted when I switch my classes in this game, which makes absolutely no sense. Packet bursting, easily the worst part of this beta next to performance issues. I hope they fix both of those sets of things, because man, it just really made playing this game kind of hard. Okay, so for this next segment, let's talk about audio. During the very first week of the beta, it was basically like everybody had dead silence on. You couldn't hear footsteps whatsoever, and then they made a change later in the week where you could hear footsteps, and that's kind of really all I have to say about that part of the audio section. I mean, I don't really care about the whole footstep thing. I prefer when the footsteps are a little bit more quiet. When you have elephant footsteps, that just encourages people to basically camp and wait out for those footstep audio cues. And in a game like Call of Duty where it's not Counter-Strike, it's just a little obnoxious to say the least. Call of Duty is all about momentum and speed and movement, and when you encourage a playstyle, cough cough, Modern Warfare 2, where everybody has to sit in a corner and just listen for your footstep audio constantly, it just slows the gameplay down to an uncomfortable crawl, to say the least. Ultimately, they did make some adjustments to this, and they eventually added in dead silence during the second weekend, which is really nice. So there was a nice little balance between dead silence and actual footstep audio. The gun audio and the sound effects, my god, were they loud. I adjusted them all to where you could hear it in my videos, but I can still hear it comfortably in my ears. I even use a sound mixer, a digital sound mixer. I use Voice Meter Banana. Some of the sound effects in this game are very loud, very obnoxious, and they made me jump so many times, especially sniper rifles. Sniper rifles have a sound cue when you shoot somebody with them, where it's like a sniper sound effect in your ear as you're dying, literally. And the effect is so loud, I jumped out of my seat so many times every time I got sniped. It was so obnoxiously loud. They did sort of kind of fix it for the rest of the week, going into the second weekend of the beta too, but ultimately it was still kind of an annoyance. I mean, just to get shot from a sniper rifle across the map and have a loud noise pop in your ear was, oh my god, it actually scared me so many times, more than I like to admit. Killstreak sound effects weren't too loud, although I did think that the noise of the helo pinging enemies got a little obnoxious after a while, which is a weird feature, by the way, to add to a helo. It just freely pings all the enemies that it sees. Kind of a cheat code if you ask me, but hey, what can you do? I didn't think it was too terrible, but it was definitely a little annoying to constantly hear that in my ears almost in every single game, because everybody and their grandmother were using, well, helos. Not too many complaints about the audio in this game. Overall, I think they did pretty good with it. The guns, oh my god, the guns sound so good in this game. And that's coming from a guy who likes to use suppressors on his guns. If you go back to like Black Ops 2, like a SCAR or a hammer with a suppressor, that beefy sound that it makes when you fire it, this game has that. I was using the SWAT, and every single shot that came out of the SWAT just made me feel like the weapon I was using was powerful. And we will talk about weapon balance in this game, because almost every single gun in this game, this beta, was good. But the sounds from all these guns were impeccable. For the last few years, with all of these like Modern Warfare Call of Duties, Vanguards, and so forth, in my personal opinion, the gun sound effects have been pretty lackluster. Every single gun you shoot sounds the exact same. They all sound like can openers. I don't know how in the world that was allowed for some of these gun sound effects over these last few years, but this is the first real Call of Duty, I think, since Cold War or Black Ops 4, where the weapon I shoot actually sounds like it has some beef behind it, and that's really nice. The one key thing when it comes to shooters like this, you want the gun you are using to sound and feel like it's powerful. And I think this game had a nice mix of both. All of the weapons, in my opinion, sounded absolutely amazing in this game. And I'm not just glazing for the sake of glazing. I genuinely thought all of the weapons, sound effects, and so forth for everything sounded absolutely amazing. It made me actually enjoy using the stuff I was using in-game. We're going to briefly talk about spawns. I don't really have much to say on this because it's a beta, but the spawns were terrible the first week, and then they adjusted them. They were a lot better in the second weekend. Babylon, That map has some absolutely horrible spawns. And we're gonna briefly talk about Babylon really quick before we even get into it later on. Babylon has a weird set of glitches, okay? You can see people through walls. There are like weird little shadow boxes that appear around a character model on that map while they're like inside of buildings and stuff. So I managed to drop a nuke literally because I could see where people were spawning. Now, it wasn't too hard to tell where people were spawning because the spawns of the map are broken. The first weekend was fine, the second weekend was fine, but again, Babylon was definitely the worst offender out of all of these maps, I think, when it came to spawns. I literally had people spawning in front of me and behind me right after I spawned, and I saw multiple people spawning inside of buildings, getting gunned down, and continuing to spawn in those buildings. I don't really have much to say about spawns because I think Treyarch's historically pretty good about readjusting spawns, so I'm pretty confident they're going to fix a lot of those spawn issues in the next like version of the game when the official game releases, so I'm not really too pressed about that. And then let's talk about COD HQ. I don't really like it, to be honest. I don't know how it's going to play out in the future. I mean, the worst part of this beta, in my opinion, was having to load up MW3, launch Black Ops, and then potentially get an update needs restart, or some weird combination of that in multiple ways. Boot up MW3, update requires restart. Have to relaunch the game. You get to MW3, boot up Black Ops 6, update requires restart, have to restart Black Ops 6. I don't like the COD HQ thing. I understand why it exists, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to fault them for inventing it. I fully understand why it exists, but that doesn't make it any better, if you ask me. It's just insane to have to launch one game to launch another game. So I hope that they're able to kind of like make it a little bit more of a smoother experience. Like, I'm curious to see how it's going to play out next year. I mean, when MW3 dropped, I didn't play MW2 anymore. So I haven't really tried to explore the whole modern version of COD HQ. I don't know how smooth the transition is between the two. Because the way I see it, I just like to be able to boot up my game and that's it. I don't want to have to boot up one game, restart, boot up another game, potentially get another update, then have to restart the whole game. It's just too much of a messy process. The only HQ that was actually good in Call of Duty was the COD HQ from World War II. Let's just put that out there. That was an amazing feature they had in Call of Duty, and they need to bring it back. So those are my overall thoughts on a lot of the performance related stuff: spawns, audio, graphics, server stability, COD HQ, performance, all of that. Those are my thoughts on those subjects. Now we're going to step into the actual gameplay elements of the game. Overall, I will say right now, I rated this beta like an 8 out of 10. All of those performance issues I talked about were really the only grievances I had with the actual beta. Going into the gameplay segment of this video, I'm going to tell you right now, I enjoyed the gameplay of this game. I thought it was amazing. Let's talk about gunplay. All of the guns feel unique. Can I just say that? Every single gun feels unique. And it's rare that we have that in Call of Duty, at least in this day and age. Back in the OG, like Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2 days, every gun had a purpose, it felt like. It felt like there were so many different options you could use that were all within a realm of like usability. They all had their pros and their cons. Every submachine gun didn't feel the exact same way. In my personal opinion, the Jackal was excruciatingly broken, don't get me wrong, but it still felt different in certain scenarios in comparison to like the MP5, or as they call it, the C9 in this game. I don't know why they call it the C9. And then we got the new submachine gun, the Tanto, which I actually do have a video coming out for that gun relatively soon. They all felt kind of unique in their own way. The Jackal was amazing at certain ranges, so much so that it actually outgunned a lot of assault rifles in the game. The C9 was the best like close quarters SMG I've used in years. And then the Tanto, I didn't really get a chance to play around with it too much because I was way more busy during this second weekend of the beta when it released. I didn't really get a chance to kind of try it out like I wanted to, but it felt like a nice weird little middle ground. It didn't feel too broken, but again, I didn't really get a chance to play around with it too much. Moving over to the ARs, for example, every gun kind of felt like it once again had a purpose. The AMES felt like the most like balanced between the ARs in my personal opinion. The AK was definitely the strongest. The XM4 was definitely the weakest. And the AMES felt like it had a little bit of everything, which is probably, I guess, in a way kind of broken, but it felt like a really good gun that was just fun to use and with, I guess, very little drawback in some ways. I would put it like this. The AK was the damage dealer, the AMES was the best all-around gun, and then the XM4 was probably the weakest. Was there another AR? Am I missing anything? I don't really remember. The XMG was one of the LMGs. I only got to play around with that for a little bit, but apparently they're bringing back like operator mods. There's one for the XMG that lets you hold it like one of the LMGs from Black Ops 4, which is like this crazy accurate hip-fire stance thing that it does. I think that'll be really cool. I don't know how many other operator mods they're gonna bring back. From the one shotgun that I used, it was kind of mid. Honestly, shotguns are not broken in this game. You generally have to be be up in people's faces to use these appropriately, which was kind of a nice change of pace for once. Hallelujah. Pistols, I only used one of them. The one that I did use felt like a 2 to 3 shot kill at some ranges, which was crazy. I didn't use the launcher. I only used one of the sniper rifles, so I don't really have too many opinions on snipers. Other than I think they're pretty lackluster. They don't really feel good at range. They don't really feel good at quick scoping. I mean, so many things flinch you like crazy. So many weapon options are better at longer ranges. And there's some weird like graphical glitches with the gun when you try to like reload and run at the same time. It was just a little weird. I wasn't too fond of the sniping in this game. Lots of adjustments need to be made to the sniper rifles, I think, for the sniping community, just to make them a little bit more fun. Maybe lower the aim assist, significantly increase the ADS speed, so that way it becomes a skill again. We had that in Black Ops 3, and it wouldn't be a bad thing if they brought it back. And then briefly, let's just talk about the SWAT, one of the marksman rifles in the game. Oh my god, it's so nice to have a fun burst rifle to use again. I haven't played a Call of Duty in years where it felt like the burst rifles actually felt fun to use. Cold War had a really nice set of burst rifles. The Modern Warfare series, all of their burst rifles, in my personal opinion, were completely unnotable. I like, they just didn't feel good. They didn't feel special. They didn't feel unique. I didn't like any of them, frankly. And let's just talk about Gunsmith briefly. Oh my god, dude. This Gunsmith is actually the most simplistic Gunsmith we've had in years. Okay, let me just tell you that right now. No more 100 plus attachments per gun. Every gun has its own set of attachments aside from sights per category. That's right, the only attachments that you have to unlock between weapons are sights. Otherwise, you can just play with the gun you want and unlock the attachments that you want saved for certain sights within that category that you need to unlock from using other weapons in that category. They need to keep it like this forever. I am still a longtime fan of Pick 10, but I'm so happy that Gunsmith is like the way it is in this iteration of Call of Duty. It's a very nice change of pace, not having so many options. All the stats are simplistic. I will say a lot of the attachments in this game have almost absolutely no negatives, which is something I think needs to be adjusted just a wee bit, but otherwise it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be in the other Call of Duties, in my opinion. I do like the perks in this game overall. They're all your pretty much typical perks that you would find in Call of Duty with some new ones thrown in here and there. I did find it pretty cool how if you have 3 of the same color of perks, you get like a super perk basically, which is like a specialist bonus that we haven't seen in literal years in Call of Duty. It's just a fun new twist to change up your builds and stuff. I had entirely Intel built builds that gave me like the recon specialty and stuff with Ninja and Ghost and all this other stuff. Cold-blooded, so basically I can move around the map freely and fast while using an SMG, but I was trading it in like damage resistance with like flak jacket and tac mask and all that. So grenade would easily take me out here and there. But I do like the fact that all of these different color specialists give you some unique ways to kind of play the game and build around your character. The only field upgrade I really want to talk about is Sleeper Agent. That thing is insane. Being able to disguise yourself as the enemy team and communicate with the enemy team is one of the most unique features we've ever had in Call of Duty, and I just love it. It combos really well with the new body shield mechanic in the game, which if you've been watching this channel for the last couple of weeks, I've uploaded over 20 plus shorts of me just trolling people with the body shield mechanic, saying weird stuff in their ears. Combo that with the Sleeper Agent, and you could just have some serious trolly fun in this game. And I just like that. I think Call of Duty should be a mix of fun, and I also think it should be a mix of competitive as well. But in pubs, I think it should be all about the fun. And that doesn't mean we're going to talk about skill-based matchmaking in a second, but let's just keep talking about all the different perks and equipment in the game. Sleeper Agent is without a doubt one of my favorite field upgrades ever added to Call of Duty, and I hope they keep it. I hope they don't really make too many changes to it. It's just such a fun and unique way to kind of play the game in pubs. Not to mention, the little goofy music that plays when you get killed by somebody using Sleeper Agent is such a Treyarch thing. I love it. It's been a while since it felt like Call of Duty had character. I didn't really enjoy Vanguard. I didn't really enjoy MW2. MW3 was, I think, actually a great game for the most part, but it just had to piggyback off of MW2, unfortunately. This is the first Call of Duty in, I don't know how long, maybe since Black Ops 3, where I felt like the game actually had its own like unique character. Between the movement, Sleeper Agent, body shield mechanics, the specialist abilities you get when you equip 3 of the same color of perks, I haven't felt like I've played a COD like this in a hot minute, man. This game actually has so much more character than I expected, and I love it. I do think that tomahawks need to be adjusted just a tiny bit. They're kind of slow on the throw, and I don't really like that for the most part. There's way too much wind up to them. But overall, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be more ways to kind of use them, abuse them like you've always been able to do in previous Call of Duty titles. But I do think upping the animation speed wouldn't be a bad thing. Also, having your knife in a dedicated knife slot kind of brings back panic knifing, which is kind of cool. It's kind of nice that I don't have to swap all of my equipment around just for a knife. The gunsmith now having the ability to transfer like different builds of your guns between Warzone and multiplayer is also really cool, so you don't have to keep rebuilding the same gun over and over. There are a lot of unique quality of life features in this game that I just never would have thought to even add to a Call of Duty that I really like. I do think EKIA needs to go out the window. I don't like my kills comboing with my assists. It just makes my kills feel a little less special, I guess. So when I made that video where I dropped a nuke, it was actually kind of dope to think all 30 of the kills that I had on screen, I had 32 for that game, I believe. 30 of those directly came from me, no assists. I do think EKIA, without a doubt, needs to go. There were a bunch of cool little tactical pieces of equipment in this game too that I didn't really play around with too much, so unfortunately I don't really have too many opinions on those. Flashbangs are very, very strong in this game. Concussions are kind of strong, but flashbangs are... You need tac masks when it comes to the flashbangs in this game. They last ages, and I mean ages. Okay, so next we're going to talk about score streaks. We had what? RCXDs, UAVs, counter UAVs, Hellstorm missiles, helos, chopper gunners. Oh, we also had a kill streak that returned from Cold War that I was not a big fan of in Cold War, and that is the aerial combat kill streak, or whatever it's called in this game, where basically you call in a bunch of jets and they shoot down any kill streaks that are currently flying in the air. Now luckily we don't have the same score streak system like we did in Cold War, where your score streak points save up regardless if you die or not, so you can basically get your score streaks for free. We luckily do not have that system in this game, so I don't think it will be too bad. But I do think it is quite annoying with how many points are required to get some of these higher tier kill streaks. You could just call in a score streak that just shoots everything down. I don't like that. I feel like you earned what you earned, and just to have it shot down basically with no real counter unless you happen to be running the exact same aerial combat kill streak, I think that's just kind of corny, and it makes it where you have to specifically run a certain type of score streak if you want to do things a certain way. Maybe that's nice for some in terms of like limiting how many score streaks are in the air on a regular basis. And again, because of the fact that we don't have the saving score system like we did in Cold War, it might not be too bad. I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of annoying when you work really hard to get a set of score streaks and they're all just shot down for free basically. But the way to the full game releases, I didn't encounter it too much, so I can't really give a full opinion on it, I guess. I just know how it was in Cold War and I didn't like it there, so I'm kind of afraid how it's going to be in this game, but we shall see. In terms of actual gunplay, sprint to fire times, speed, movement, all of this stuff, man, it feels really, really good. And I guess this could be the section where we talk about omni movement, but we'll combo it in with some more gunplay mechanics. All the guns feel, for the most part, snappy, responsive, and clean, save for some sniper rifles here and there. For once, I don't feel like I have 2 stone blocks taped to my feet when I'm trying to run around with an SMG in this game, or even an AR. All of the guns feel fun to actually play around with, move around with, and engage in combat with. And it's been a while since I felt like this for Call of Duty. I know I'm like glazing super hard, but seriously, I really enjoyed the gunplay in this game. The attachments not really having any negatives is a bit of a hit or miss for some, but I do just like the fact that the guns are just overall fun to use, and I don't feel annoyed using any type of gun. I feel like every single gun had a purpose, and every single gun in this beta, save for maybe like the XM4 here and there, were all super strong. So in terms of like crazy plays and playability, let's talk about omni movement briefly. I don't really have much to say about it. It was nowhere near as broken as I thought it was going to be. To me, this game just feels like a jetpack COD on the ground, and I love that as a resident jetpack meat rider. I love jetpack Call of Duties back in 2014, 2015, 2016, especially Black Ops 3 is my favorite COD of all time. Omni movement feels like a nice just change of pace. It feels unique. It is a nice step up from the boots on the ground CODs that we've had over the years. It's just really fun to play around with. It doesn't feel obnoxious. I didn't encounter anybody just blatantly doing the most outrageous things with it. I love omni movement, surprisingly. When I first saw the trailers for it, I thought I was going to hate it. I thought it was going to be annoying. I thought it was going to be boring to just fight against 24/7. But overall, like, it really was nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's just another movement tech. But again, it makes me feel like I'm playing a jetpack COD that is also just a boots on the ground COD. Sprinting is a little weird in this game. I mean, I don't really like that we still have tactical sprint. I think it should all just be one general sprint with an increased sprint speed. I don't like having 2 versions of sprint. It just feels just clunky and weird. I've never liked it. Will never like it. I didn't really use too many of the assist settings. They have a bunch of like manual assist settings. The only ones that I did use were for sprinting, so I can get some form of like auto tactical sprint going. Other than that, I didn't really use too many of the auto mantle, auto features that they added to the game. There were some issues with game chat in this game, just straight up not working at the end of game, so you couldn't talk back and forth with enemy players, but I swear there were a couple of moments where I saw players on both teams just arguing with each other. Maybe I'm going crazy, but I hope they do fix that for the final release because game chat is crucial to Call of Duty. They also brought back the Winter Circle 2 from the other Black Ops games, Black Ops 3, and I don't remember if Black Ops 4 had a Winter Circle. They did bring that feature back. I mean, it looks fun, it's funny. We don't have the same meme dances like we did back in the day, like the whip and the nay-nay and all that stuff. It was a little bugged. You could just spam it over and over, which kind of makes the game look a little incomplete in my personal opinion. I don't think they should necessarily fix that, but if they do fix it, I wouldn't be surprised because it just makes the game look a little jank. Let's talk about maps finally. There really isn't a really big map in this game. Rewind, in my opinion, was probably the worst map in the game. It took 10 years to get from one side of the map to the other. Throughout all of the game modes, be it TDM, Kill, Order, I almost forgot what it was called, Hardpoint, and Domination, which were all the modes that they added to the game. It was a weird map. It just took way too long to get to the other parts of the map. If you had to engage anybody or get to an objective, you got killed and had to respawn, you had to run like 10 miles just to get to the next point. I didn't like that about that map. Babylon, I mentioned earlier, has broken spawns. Derelict was a nice map. I really like Skyline. I could assume that's going to be a competitive map. It's just a fun map overall. Did suck on Kill Order though, because people would just go hide in the vents. I literally encountered an entire team of people hiding in the vents on Kill Order for that map. So I didn't like that part for it, unfortunately. I guess we could talk about the game modes. TDM is TDM. I don't know why they always set the limit to 100. It should just be 125 or 150 with how fast-paced Call of Duties are nowadays. 100 kills go by in the blink of an eye, so I think they should bump it up just a little bit, just to make it a little bit more worth your while, in my opinion. Domination is domination. Making the domination points just giant points now instead of flags wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, if we're being completely honest. Now, I did think it was kind of taken away from some form of the skill element of domination. Having to be directly on the flag was kind of the whole point. But the new zones that they added, I actually don't think are bad at all. Again, a lot of the questionable things that they added to this game turned out to be a lot better than I thought they were going to be. And it just kind of made this game feel a little bit more newer in comparison to the same repetitive stuff we've had with Call of Duty over the years. Kill Order is a weird mode that I think is just map dependent. That's all I really have to say about that. I don't think it's as terrible as people are making it out to be, but I do think that it is very map dependent. I did play Face Off 6v6. I mean, I don't have much to say about Face Off 6v6. It's literally just cracked out shipment, cracked out plays, cracked out SMG users, YY TikTok kids. I don't have much to say about it. The maps are pretty cool, and that's about it, really. I'm sure it was fun for some. For me, it was just a little too chaotic. Hardpoint is hardpoint. It's just dependent on if the spawns are good on the map or not, by the way. I mean, that's kind of all I really have to say about hardpoint, I guess. I did not get a chance to play Gunfight, unfortunately, so I can't really give too many opinions on that. And then finally, I guess we could just talk about skill-based matchmaking. It's strong. Well, I have to say about it, really. I mean, I dropped a nuke in this game once after joining a friend who hadn't played Call of Duty in years, and the differences in lobbies were very egregious. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, you should always play in your own skill bracket. I agree. If it's a ranked play, but nothing matters in public matches. I don't think pubs should be a constant sweat fest 24/7 just because you drop a 1.3. That is not an impressive KD. I've dropped worse than that and still had matches that beat the absolute living hell out of me for just having good games or decent games or even negative games that were semi-okay. I don't like how strict it can just be sometimes, man. And then I played with some friends that were competitive players previously that played in Challengers and played in competitive college Call of Duty back in the day. Their lobbies were some of the most unenjoyable things that I've ever experienced. I was playing with another homie who isn't a super sweat, and he had the exact same reaction. Like, you just couldn't do anything in those lobbies. Everybody was cracked out of their damn mind. It's just kind of nuts how there are literally like 3 or 4 different experiences in this Call of Duty. You've got either super cracked out or super brain dead, like with some of those lobbies that I had earlier with a friend who hadn't played COD in years. The differences in lobbies was just kind of egregious, man. I think there needs to be just a balance. You get some sweats sometimes, you get some losers sometimes that just can't aim. Losers is a bit of a strong word, so I apologize. I think Call of Duty matchmaking just needs to have variance. You have some games where you're cracked, you could have a streak of games where you're cracked, you can have a couple of games here and there where you're playing against equally cracked people, and then you have games that have just a nice midway balance where like 1 or 2 people on each team are the best in the lobby or something like that. Having constant games where it is me versus a 6-stack of cracked out sweats is just so annoying and exhausting after a while. It feels like I literally just got through running a marathon every time I got in the lobbies like that. And I also think it creates this weird like subculture where everybody feels like they have to try hard, because this is the exact same mindset that I got. If I'm expecting every single game that I play to be absolutely insane, I'm going to play every single game insane because I just don't want to get ran through like that. It's just not fun. I'm not saying I should just be able to run through people like in the same fashion, but damn, just because I do decent one game does not mean I'm ready to play competitively. I am 28 years old. I am too old to play COD competitively. I just can't deal with how exhausting it can be sometimes just playing these absolutely cracked out games. And the fact that we had a meta the first weekend is insane. Seeing builds everywhere for jackals and this is the only weapon you need. I'm gonna say this right now, there are a lot of issues with modern FPS games, especially Call of Duty, but the whole concept of having a meta in a damn beta is a player issue. I'm sorry, I just don't think that's acceptable. It's a beta. We shouldn't have metas. Just because a gun is broken doesn't inherently mean it has to be the only gun you use. I've had multiple lobbies throughout this beta where the only gun being used by both sides were jackals. And here I am with my nice little X4 trying to level it up, try something different. And we've got 11 other jackal PDWs in the lobby playing like they have a tournament on the line. I don't hate people that are sweaty. I don't hate people that aren't sweaty. I just think there needs to be a nice balance. I understand people not wanting to just get stomped 24/7. I respect that. I also understand not wanting to just try hard all the time. There needs to just be a balance where everything evens out like how it used to back in the day. Now, apparently older Call of Duties did used to have skill-based matchmaking, but it was nowhere near as egregious as it is in modern iterations of COD, especially these modern Treyarch Call of Duties. So if I were to give all of my goods for this entire game, let's just kind of break things down a little bit and bring it back. The goods: gunplay. The maps were okay. Perks, score streaks, lethals, tacticals, field upgrades, especially the sleeper agent, the body shield mechanic, the attachment variation not being too egregious, the gun sound effects and so forth, I would say are definitely the best parts of this entire experience. The only bad I really have with this is server stability issues, performance issues, graphical issues, spawns, but they did kind of fix that and having to use COD HQ. But I enjoyed the core gameplay. I gave the core gameplay, I would say maybe like a 9 out of 10 in the overall beta and 8 out of 10. Once they address those server stability issues and performance issues, I'm not gonna lie, this might be the most fun COD I've played in years. I was so excited to play this beta every single day, and the fact that I can't play it now, well, kind of makes me sad because I really did enjoy every single thing about this beta for the most part. So hey guys, thanks for watching this very, very long video. If you enjoyed it, leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought about the Black Ops 6 closed beta and open beta. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and as always, this has been Jay the Gamer, or JFPS as I call myself now on this channel. I will see you in the next video. I hope you have a great day. Peace.